is one of the major things.
کاوش مدیا.
I think the Houthis now building up their weapons and they were building up their capabilities a lot better, and they start threatening the Saudis a lot. So what I think that with the support with the neighboring, unfortunately, the Iranian and the Lebanese, so they don't want to lose the chance, and it's getting real difficult. Though lately we saw some agreement, or the Saudis called the GCC to have a meetings or to have a gathering at least sometimes by the end of this month in Saudi Arabia. We hear that the Houthis are not welcoming this. Again, it will be real hard to communicate with the Houthis. So the overall picture, military policies are not doing fine. The politician or the diplomats areas, they're struggling truly, especially the Yemeni sides. And again, we're facing an unfortunate, not a good support, maybe with the Ukrainian and Russian conflict, that now they are start looking at the Saudis and they start providing them with the Patriots, and they're saying we may nominate Houthis as a terror group, but it's a little bit too late.
10 years ago, Yemen was already quite impoverished and struggling, but at least had a semi-functional system of civilian infrastructure, whereas because of the targeting from the Saudi-led coalition on these civilian facilities, life, as we can see in these images, people are starving and really unable to survive. Okay. And so, I think the most important thing to keep in mind here is that the international community is not paying attention to this. We see so much attention shifted to Ukraine, and yet there are so many parallels between what Russia is doing to Ukraine and what Saudi Arabia is doing to Yemen.
Iran are our neighboring country, so we have no problem to get along with their neighboring, but they are building two major things, that they change the maps, or they change, let's say, the ideology. And the other things that they want the sects of the Shia to dominate the Islamic swords. And I'm not here going back to speak about the religions, but this is since 1400 years we have the conflict. So whatever the Iranians trying to do, this is their major and number one step, that they want to dominate the Islamic swords.
I'll have to ask you then. There are others, who argue that it really is Iran that is the problem here by arming the Saudis, so that even if there are good arming the Houthis, of course. So even if there are good intentions on behalf of the Saudis to try and resolve this via negotiations, it's the Iranians that are continuing to arm the Houthi rebels and encouraging them to keep this battle going on the ground and not to speak to their counterparts in Saudi and the UAE. Where do you stand on that?
What's ironic is Saudi Arabia intervened in the first place 7 years ago because they were concerned about this notion that Iran was supporting the Houthis. But what's ironic about it is the fact that Iranian support has only increased over the past 7 years. And as this war continues, it is likely to continue to increase, because this is a great way for Iran to force Saudi Arabia to spend hundreds of billions of dollars. And there's been some efforts by the Saudis to provide for humanitarian assistance to Yemen, but at the same time, it has cost infinitely more for the Saudis to purchase all of the weapons that they're using to destroy Yemen. We also recently just had the big UN conference to try to raise funds for Yemen, and neither the Saudis nor Emiratis contributed to this. And so the UN was hoping to raise something in the $3 billion range, and we're only able to raise about $1 billion. And so especially now, as we're seeing the price of wheat go up due to the conflict, the Russian war on Ukraine and Russia both being major wheat producers, programs like the World Food Program are saying they're going to have to cut the assistance that they provide to Yemen and other impoverished countries around the world, because the price of wheat is spiking now, and there are just simply no more funds to provide for humanitarian assistance to Yemen. And so we're likely to continue to see things just getting worse and worse. And this notion that Iran is providing this incredible amount of support, well, how much support are the Americans providing the Saudis, and then the Saudis and Emiratis providing to their proxies in Yemen? The international community has come together to prevent Iranian smuggling, which is why we have the UN verification mechanism that Hussein was mentioning, that oversees the import of goods. And yet, as he was saying, the Saudis often further delay those ships that the UN has already approved, said there's no weapons on board this ship, it's just fuel, it's just food, it can go through, and then it's delayed for months or diverted to Saudi Arabia. And so Yemenis are not having access to these resources.
آنچه در مورد ما میگویند